That's cool. That movie, Selma, that recent movie was really good. Enjoyed it. I mean, not enjoyed, you know what I mean? Got a lot out of it. It was great to see important history realized on screen. This book looks incredible. I was looking at this earlier during one of my failed takes of this video. And I hadn't realized it was an oral history. It's a collection of oral histories. Selections from the Slave Narrative Collection. Everybody interviewed in this book were slaves. This is the coolest oral history I own. Oh my god. Oh, look. Oh, so, This collection of essays traces the origins and developments of white racial attitudes in America. Analytic. Oh, this is something else. The Great Fear. Race in the Mind of America. Wow, that sounds wild. I really don't want this guy just idling out there all the time. It's so annoying. I want to be cool with my neighbor and everything, but I am not cool with him just always being out there. I'm like, great, he's the brother of someone that lives here. I have family too. Should they all live in the god? Y'all has to excuse me if I don't talk so good, because, see, I would never transcribe an interview like this. I don't care if someone's talking like that. I'm going to transcribe it as what you're actually trying to say. Like, do you think she meant to say cues, writer? I think she meant excuse. So why don't you write excuse? Got home at night and my mind and heart was full, but I was surprised at the way he treated me. He acted kind and asked if I was going to stay with him next year. I was pleased. I told him, yes, sir. Then I lay down and went to sleep. He had a boss man on his plantation. Then the next morning he called me, but I just couldn't wake. I seemed to be in a trance or something. I had recently lost so much sleep. He called me the second time and still I did not get up. He came in and spanked my head. I jumped up and went to work feeding the stock and splitting wood for the day's cooking and fires. Then went in and ate my breakfast. Robert Glenn, interviewed at Raleigh, North Carolina, 87. I was a slave before and during the Civil War. I am 87 years old. I was born September 16th, 1850. I was born in Orange County, North Carolina, near Hillsborough. I'm really glad I own this. This looks cool. If I get enough oral histories, I'll make a shelf. This looks really interesting. It's 4 books combined by naturalist and nature writer Edwin Way Teale. Each one about traveling during a season in America, which is a cool idea. Simple and beautiful. But he won the Pulitzer Prize for all 4 put together. That's really rad. This book really influenced me for a while. This was like a necessary step when getting out of the religion I'd grown up in. It's got a chapter in particular, why people believe weird things with logical fallacies, how thinking goes wrong, 25 fallacies that lead us to believe weird things. At a lot of places, they don't like you using that word ruins. Like, that might be a bridge too far that you can't use the word ruins. Like, no one's lived in it for 1,000 years, so if you go to some of the Western, like state parks and national parks and so on, they'll have stuff about that in the visitor center. Burden of proof. After the fact reasoning. Code of words and false analogies. The appeal to ignorance. Ad hominem and tu quoque. Hasty generalizations. Over-reliance on authority. Either or. Ugh. Not enjoying how I'm feeling right now. Anyway, it's good that situation was de-escalated though. But I guess if this ever comes up again, I could say he could park on the street just as easily. Still be security for the apartment. Park out on the cul-de-sac along the curb, not in our lot. I used to have tons of like atheist books and so on. Now I'm like, it's really like a term of semantics. Like, what do you call God or whatever? Some people want to call it that. Einstein said, I believe in Spinoza's God, which is just basically isness, like everything that is. Oh, this is an interesting book, though, because it's like a historic, what do you call it, an anthology of writing across time. It's nice to have broad surveys like that. Never going to escape this guy. Now he's even closer, right next to my car. At least he's not pumping carbon dioxide onto the porch. I want him out of here. Like, listen to that. It's always in front of your house, someone vacuuming. He also wrote that stuff. I could see letting these books go at some point. I keep this one because it's connected to a song lyric of my kid. But no, I like a good broad historical survey on whatever topic. I signed up for this Book of the Month Club thing whenever this came out. And they sent me this one, and I meant to read it. This is one I see like teachers reading sometimes. It's around. Maybe also because of that same club. But also this author, I think, did a lot of interviews. Caste, The Origin of Our Discontents. Yeah, about class divisions. As a young hitchhiker, I rode across much of British Columbia and the Northwest Territories with this preacher who thought he was casting demons out of me. And I was reading Gandhi's All Men Are My Brothers, the same copy I was looking at in a previous video here. And he's all, Gandhi's evil. He's from India. They have a caste system. Anyway, The Americas on the Eve of Discovery. This looks cool. What a beautiful book. Oh, and it looks, what a great topic. Millennia before the Americas were quote-unquote discovered, they belonged to tribes totally unknown to the old world, yet products of Mayan and Inca genius paralleled the greatest achievements of the ancient world. Wow. Sounds incredible. I'd have to read this. And wow, what a beautiful book. 1964. Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. Hey, this is cool. Love a little plastic-covered, protected old book like that. Bertrand Russell, 1962. What? Pride of race. Pride of greed. That's interesting. Pride of race is even more harmful than national pride. It's anti-racism. Good for him. The garage proprietor was a bad type of American who treated my Chinese friend like dirt. Contemptuously accused him of being Japanese and made my blood boil by his ignorant malevolence. Similar attitude to the English in India. Wow. Yoga Dictionary. John McPhee is a very special, interesting writer. Apparently he got rejected by the New Yorker so many times before he became one of their classic writers. This one's all about Alaska. Cool, yeah, I've always meant to read this for that. I think I have a copy of this in nonfiction paperback too. What about the plains? Rising from the Plains. About Rocky Mountain geology. That's cool. Evanes Connell Raves. I'd like to read all of McPhee, honestly. Let's keep going. I ever put Bill Bryson nonfiction shelf part together. Pull this one out because this is one of his travel logs. I left a tag on. I think I liked some of this, but hated how he wrote about New Mexico. A hamlet called Tres Piedras. I went climbing there on this amazing slabby granite that they have there. That wilderness camp I was at, working at. I don't know, this seems all right. But I thought I remembered him being really derogatory about listening to the radio and hearing like Spanish music. Let's see. I mean, whatever, you don't have to like everything. Oh, here it is. So far from anywhere that I could pick up only scattered stations, and they were all Spanish-speaking ones playing that kind of ay Mexican music that's always sung by strolling musicians with droopy mustaches and big sombreros, and the sort of restaurants where high school teachers take their wives for their 30th wedding anniversaries, the sort of places they like to set your food alight to impress you. It had never once occurred to me in 36 years of living that anyone listened to Mexican music for pleasure, yet here there were a dozen stations blaring it out. After each song, a disc jockey would come on and jabber, that's such a dude, for a minute or two in Spanish in the tone of a man who's just, you know, hey, you can like someone as a person and not endorse every line of their writing. Bill Bryson, as I've said in other videos, he really helped my friends and I out when we organized our hike across the country. His endorsement and John Krakauer's endorsement got us Columbia as a sponsor, and that got us everybody else. So always old Bill Bryson, super cool guy. But, you know, he's of his generation and writes from that perspective. And he lived in England, in New England, so his take on New Mexico is maybe not the most informed. This book was really interesting to me when I read it. I don't have a lot of like business books or whatever, things like that. And it's in such bad shape, but also this is like Mormon connected. I think this came out of Utah or something, but I remember actually really being affected by it when I read it. And I think I held on to it just in case I ever write about that time. I'll want to quote it or something, revisit it. But it's just all about like realizing everybody is just as much a person as you are, which is a great topic. It's kind of realized through some weird like imaginary conversations. Anyway, I remember it being kind of interesting and kind of like empowering and eye-opening for a little while. And I was working on an independent movie in Utah at the time. This was way in the early 2000s, pre-kids. And a number of people I knew were reading this book and like being affected by it. One of the stranger books in my collection. And in terrible shape, so it must mean something. What? I don't have any other books in this kind of condition. Someone else owned this before me. This book is really cool. You learn about what's going on at all these different microscopic levels of life and so on. The extraordinary science of an ordinary day. Come in the kitchen, toss the newspaper on the table, and what's there to see? A great mob of tiny creatures fleeing for their lives. These are the pseudomonads, and they're one of the most widespread bacterial beings in the home. There are many thousands hanging on by strands to your face as you walk in, a good number on your arms and bathroom, and even more on any recently moist house surface. Here on the kitchen table, they're flailing and twisting and desperately trying to make it to the far side. But in this endeavor, they suffer one near insurmountable problem. They're too small, not the size of a mite, not the size of half a mite, but smaller still, itty-bitty, so tiny that a pile of 100,000 would not be visible, and so short that the far end of the table, the one they're lunging for, is an awful 400,000 body lengths away, while for us would be over 400 miles on a flat road. And the creatures can't walk. They can't walk, trot, jog, skip, or sprint. They can't hop. They can't even crawl. With no arms or legs, all these modes of locomotion are out of consideration. They're shaped like simple stubby tubes, what we might look like if stuffed into a rubber wetsuit that had no outlets for our limbs or head. Yet even shaped like that, these pseudomonads still have to flee across the table from this awful thing that is coming after them. So they swim, no arms, so the breaststroke goes out, no legs, so a flutter kick would no. Yeah, too cute. I love that kind of writing. But that's still, informationally, it's good to have this kind of book. He wrote a book about E equals MC squared, about that equation too, which I thought was too full of digressions. I know that I ramble and go in every direction when I talk on these videos and so on, but like when I'm reading a book and so on, kind of like a little focus. And I don't like when you read sciencey stuff and it just gets bogged down in historical anecdotes. I remember I think I wrote some critical online reviews of some of his books, but content-wise, pretty interesting. This cool book, The Puritans, a source book of their writings. Oh, I love stuff like this, although this is volume 2. Manners, customs, and behavior, poetry, literary theory, education, science, biographies, and letters. There's a growing need for this source book. The binding feels terrible. Oh, this seems like it has actual, it's not just a bibliographical list. It's like contains the things. That's great. It's like an anthology. Cotton Mather. Someone marked it up a bit with ink. Thomas Hooker. Some of my ancestors came with Thomas Hooker from Holland to Connecticut in the 1600s on a ship called the Griffin. I like to say, my ancestors rode to America on a griffin with a hooker. In fact, if you go to, what's that big town? Hartford, Connecticut, there's a founder's stone there. And an ancestor is on that. Still hear that idiot's car. Look at that, pages of Samuel Sewell's diary. Oh, that's someone else. I thought it was this. I think I have a diary by Samuel Sewell somewhere. Yeah, there it is. A famous contemporary account of life in Puritan New England. November 21st, 1700, day of public Thanksgiving. At 3 post Maria, Mr. Willard comes abroad and prays to the great refreshment of the congregation. This is the first time since his sickness in the evening I made these verses on it V. It looks pretty unique. A fan's notes. James Dickey liked it. The best novel. Oh, it's a novel? This is in the wrong section. What? I thought it was like a real sports fan's notes. Oh. This is less interesting to me. Put that away later. Last he's gone. Should this be in memoir? Memoir got too full, so there's some memoir spilling out into nonfiction. And some memoirs are more about like the larger subject that they're exploring. I have chapters like that. Call them dynamic landscapes. Like it's more about the setting or whatever milieu surrounds the figure than it is the figure. It's a great idea. Go down the Nile. I'd do a Nile trip. I feel like I should do an American river trip before I do that. This is Ian Fraser's really interesting looking family memoir. I read parts of it. But I love that idea. I mentioned all my American ancestors in my 2-volume, 60-chapter memoir. I've tried to really research them all. It's cool to look at those big pictures. I stop at America because it gets more difficult once you get over to America or England in the 1500s. People get lost as you go back in the records real quick. Certain names pop up in the distant past. You can find them, but also it's hard not to conflate oneself with wherever you live. You know, you're part of it. You're a piece of it. So exploring like the history of your family in a place is it's cool. Starts it with this. Oh, I read that recently. We can believe in the nothingness of life. We can believe in the nothingness of death and of life after death. But who can believe in the nothingness of Ben? As soon as his brother died. Thomas Wolfe, Look Homeward Angel. It is a cool book. Different, interesting. A chunk of reality on the page. Ian Fraser's such an interesting figure. I'll never forget that New York article where he invents something to get trash out of trees, a long-handled grabber, and it like changes his life. It's great. He's an interesting mind, like I've mentioned in that project, where he found all this cassette tape just tangled in bushes and trees and so on, and he edited it together into a sound collage. That's so cool. Love that kind of stuff. Mom, happy birthday. With love, Jen and Edward. P.S. How are you doing with your Lauren? December 5th, 1999. His other books at the time were all Dating Your Mom, 1986. Nobody Better Than Nobody, 1987. Great Plains, 94, this book. Well, this looks kind of interesting. Barbara Ehrenreich, A Non-Believer's Search for the Truth About Everything. Living with a Wild God. Good title. Very Anna Dillard-esque. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a quote from Dillard. Barbara Ehrenreich at age 18, well into the writing of the journal that led to this book. I mean, she has written some of my favorite nonfiction, so that's why I have this. To remove a tag. She wrote Dancing in the Streets, A History of Collective Joy, and Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America. Those books are incredible. And she co-wrote Witches, Nurses, and Midwives, which is an amazing little book about the medical industry getting paternalistic and taking power away from women. And it's really interesting. The demonization of natural cures, etc. And yeah, she's great. In the spring of 2001, I was presented with the unnerving task of assembling my papers for storage in a university library. The timing of this forced review of my life. Maybe that's another reason I've held on to this book and then I have this book. I mean, I think I would have everything by Ehrenreich. She also wrote a book about cancer because she had cancer where she's like, ugh, I hate all this motivational fundraising stuff. Pink ribbons and everything. She's all curmudgeonly about it. I don't have a positive attitude. Nickel and Dimed, which strangely has been turned into a play. I remember it being put on in town a couple times. Given many copies to minimum wage workers. Drive-through windows. I love the idea of going over your old journals. I mean, I have 2 essays, one in particular in my book that are kind of like that. With one, it's my 11-year-old journal. Childhood revised and updated. 1991, 5th grade. December 4th, 1990. Today could not be called dull. The best thing is that Juliet came back. She was so skinny you could count her ribs. And I gave a speech to the town council. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Smith, and I would like to tell you what some people have done to help the environment and what we as responsible citizens could do to help too. I vaguely remember that, but that's cool, going over your old journals and writing a new work, reassessing your past and thinking about life. Non-believer search for the truth about everything. Griftopia. Yeah, I read this. I like Matt Taibbi, or I have really liked him in history. At one point, I was a Taibbi completist, and I had read everything of his. He kind of got me into doing some of that gonzo political writing stuff. It created a fake identity, guy with a mustache and a patriotic wardrobe. Went to all these Tea Party meetings and stuff. My favorite protest sign was, "Whatever happened to our Congress?" But people would let their guard down and tell me the craziest stuff. And I wrote a blog in character, just totally making fun of this mentality. But then I realized satire of that sort is impossible. You're just another moron swelling their ranks. If you're standing out ironically in a parade or something like that, no one knows that. It's just another ridiculous part of whatever horrible thing they're doing. I got disgusted, feeling like it was all a big distraction. Then later I realized, no, it wasn't a distraction, but it was stupid. I always knew that. One time, I went to this convention thing from some Tea Party people, and they just kept watching that clip of Braveheart where everyone yells freedom, and then they just yelled freedom for like 20 minutes. Freeing dumb, as I put it in my book. This is about the 2008 financial crisis, and that was an old gear that I only tried once or twice. You know, that kind of political satire stuff, inspired by this and like early Jon Stewart. Who else? Greg Palast. I mean, who doesn't love a gonzo muckraker, you know? But Goldman Sachs, the vampire squid wrapped around the face of humanity. One of those books that I read, and I'm like, I guess I understand the 2008 financial crisis now, kind of. People are betting on whether stocks are going to fail or not, and so they become interested in them failing. Kind of forgot a lot of it, and I'm fine with that. Shackleton, good old Shackleton. So this is just focusing on the boat journey, which is pretty cool. This is about that 800-mile boat trip, huh? Yeah, what an amazing story, Shackleton. There was a side expedition to help them that did not fare as well, and so it wasn't a rescue without casualties. Sir Edmund Hillary, the Everest climber. Was he the first? I think so. Wrote a narrative introduction. Huh. Page 1 was here. I became aware of Shackleton's story at an early age. Maybe before, but definitely when I watched a documentary about him in 2001. I was like, whoa, what an epic story. Since read tons about him. Amazing topic. Boat gets crushed in the ice. People have to get out of Antarctica somehow and survive. And they mostly do. Everyone on the main expedition does. But there's a huge boat journey, a journey across an icy mountainous island. Just everything. It's incredible. And it's a story that still keeps getting updated. Like they recently found a bunch of frozen photos that were out there still. And they recently found the ruin of the ship. Though absolutely Sherry Garrard's book about the Scott expedition, The Worst Journey on the World, is still maybe the gold standard of Antarctic exploration books. Noam Chomsky, Empire and Ideology, the Managua Lectures, Managua. Delivered at the Universidad Centroamericana, Managua. Huh. But Guatemala is mentioned in here. Let's see. Costa Rican universities. Oh, wow. Central America, cool. Great topic. Love Central America. Spent some time down there in Guatemala and Honduras. Got dengue fever, almost died. It's also called bone break fever. I wonder why. I also think did I have malaria? Definitely had bed bugs and fleas. I basically went to the pharmacist. They made me take my shirt off in line at the pharmacy to make sure it was bed bugs. And then they just gave me these pills that were like strychnine. Like almost, you'll almost die, but they'll leave you after a while. It's a shouty day in the neighborhood. Home life in colonial days. Would you identify a sausage gun if you had to? How about a plate warmer or a well sweep? Everyday life and customs of the colonial era. Love it. Great topic. First published in 1898, so excellent. Oh, Dover, you're amazing. Your packaging is often very basic, but your bindings are solid, and you keep things in print. Beautiful, durable copies. That's a good cover. That's a little computery. What a title. I used this one in my book essay that was all book titles. Studying the Earth from Space, the Prairie Has an Endless Sky. Studying the Earth from Space. The Prairie Has an Endless Sky. I used this one in my essay that was all book titles. This is about archaeoastronomy and how knowledge of the sky was coded into the rock artwork. I mean, here in New Mexico, you can go see literally a petroglyph of the 1054 supernova that led to the formation of the Crab Nebula. There's petroglyphs in there, a Chaco Canyon of it, and the fire pits nearby date right to that time. It's a nice, well-made book. Using the artist Anna Sofer's discovery of the Chaco Canyon calendar as a starting point. Cool. Chaco Canyon's amazing. If you ever get a chance, go. Museum shop. Huh. Wonder which museum. 1982. A Shropshire Lad. This is a book of poems that I own because few volumes of poetry in the English language have enjoyed as much success with both literary connoisseurs and the general reader as A.E. Housman's A Shropshire Lad, first published in 1896. Scholars and critics have seen in these timeless poems an elegance of taste and perfection of form and feeling comparable to the greatest of the classics. Huh. Maybe I should read this. But I have it because it's the central text of For a Breath I Tarry by Roger Zelazny, one of my favorite sci-fi stories ever, a novelette that's collected in this book. See the sci-fi videos I've posted for more on this biz. Zelazny said it was his favorite novelette. Yeah, dude, it's one of the best sci-fi things ever written. It's amazing. The day that Mordell returned, he brought with him an outline of history and a Shropshire Lad. Frost scanned them both, and he turned his attention to Mordell. Have you time to impart information? Yes, said Mordell. What do you wish to know? The nature of man. Frost scanned Principles of Economics. Frost is a 40-foot by 40-foot gelatinous flying cube that maintains the weather of the planet after humans have gone extinct. It becomes obsessed with humanity because of the things it's left behind, including a Shropshire Lad. Shropshire Lad. Worst superhero name ever. Look, it's Shropshire Lad. From Clee to heaven the beacon burns, the shires have seen it plain. From north and south the sign returns, and beacons burn again. Look left, look right, the hills are bright, the dales are light between, because 'tis 50 years tonight that God has saved the Queen. Maybe Lin-Manuel Miranda will turn it into a musical. Maybe this would be better in the fiction section. Remember I said the poetry in this collection is vibes-based, where it's assigned? It seems like it's a narrative about a character. There are poems that deal poignantly with the changing climate of friendship, the fading of youth, the vanity of dreams. Poems that are among the most read, shared, and quoted in our language. Really? Am I just the only person that's not, like, really into A.E. Housman and sharing his poems? Index of first lines, that's old school. Kind of makes a new poem. To my heart an air that kills, in valleys of springs of rivers, is my team plowing, it nods and curtsies and recovers. Leave your home behind, lad, loitering with a vacant eye. Look not in my eyes for fear. Loveliest of trees, the cherry now hollow fires burn out to black. Yeah, that's pretty good. Clee is a range of hills in Shropshire. Here's how it ends. I hoed and trenched and weeded and took the flowers to fair. I brought them home unheeded, the hue was not the wear. So up and down I sow them for lads like me to find, when I shall lie below them, a dead man out of mind. Some seed the birds devour, and some the season mars, but here and there will flower the solitary stars, and fields will yearly bear them as light-leaved spring comes on, and luckless lads will wear them when I am dead and gone. That's just how it is when you're rolling out of Shropshire. The real lads know. Another book that I read around the time I took an early Christianity class. My younger sister, then brother, was really into this book. He was telling me to check it out all the time. I think gave me this copy. Jesus, don't cry. This guy's a real prominent, often interviewed religious scholar, Bart Ehrman, author of Misquoting Jesus. I don't think I could ever really write a book like this because I always get to a point when I'm making like an anti-religious argument or something like that where I'm like, ugh, I'm still talking about this. This stuff that dominated my youth. But it is really interesting. Just how things come to be, you know. All right. Here, Ehrman reveals what scholars have unearthed. The authors of the New Testament have diverging views about who Jesus was and how salvation works. The New Testament contains books that refer to the names of the apostles by Christian writers who lived decades later. Jesus, Paul, Matthew, and John all represented fundamentally different religions. Interesting. Established Christian doctrines such as the suffering Messiah, the divinity of Jesus, and the Trinity were inventions of later theologians. I believe I read this. But it was read in a flurry of books on the topic, and it blurs. That often happens. I also had a wild audiobook chapter where I had driving jobs and listened to so many audiobooks. When I was delivering the paper when I was an undergraduate, driving around UNM, I must have listened to 100 books. And this or Misquoting Jesus was definitely one of them. Or when I had a little stereo in my kitchen that I would play audiobooks while I was doing dishes and stuff. I went through a lot of books that way. All right, 30 minutes. That's good. Some more nonfiction. And here, as always, we can read the absence of books. The real knowledge. Light and shadow, that's the classic stuff. I found this work really underlines the fundamental dichotomy at the heart of what it means to be a human. And thematically, it kind of underlined for me that nothing is something, you know? The more you look at it, the more you realize it's there. Here we have parts of a tree that grew in a forest. Creatures probably lived in that tree. Generations. Their descendants probably still roam. Technologies of planing wood are probably connected to industrialization. Sawmills, water usage. Even in the emptiest expanses of space, it said protons are still sparking off of one another here and there. Something's going on here and there. Nothing is something. Nothing is impossible. As John Cage said about silence, there's no such thing as silence. There's no such thing as nothing. There's no such thing as emptiness. Still going, great. Well, actually, he just moved and he's in a different parking lot. I can still hear him. Great. See him from my front window. Moved. I'm going to move this book over here because now there's a gap. Where a fan's notes was in a Shropshire lad. Okay, this has been Nonfiction. This has been me feeling hungry and experiencing a toothache while stressing out about this dumb stuff with my neighbor's brother, who idles endlessly in the parking lot in front of my place. Great. Bye, everybody. I'm working to improve my life right now, but very concerned about financial things. Oh, life. All right. Take care, everybody. Hire me to do some writing if you want. Hit me up in the comments or at michaelfarrellsmith@gmail.com. michaelfarrellsmith@gmail.com, or hit me up in the comments for writing, editing, some stuff could help you. Collaboration could be fun. Hire me. All right, next time we'll look at that next shelf of nonfiction. Wonder what will happen the 2 times after that. Time to do some eating. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. If it's the weekend still. Or if you're watching this at a later date, have a good whatever day it is. Imagine a world where all the nonfiction was fiction that exists now, and all the fiction was nonfiction. What would that be like? It could be a fun literary thought experiment that could become a world for a book. All right. Take care, everybody.